This is the Resilient and Resourced Educator, and I'm your host, Danette Adams. Today we speak with Linda, who has been an educator for 30 years. She has valuable insight on resourcing herself and others. Her belief in a student-centered education system has led her to create two unique resources that she shares in our chat. Please join us. So welcome, Linda, to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So I'd like to start with a question that I love asking educators, and that is an educator, a teacher, or a professor, somebody in their life that mentored them that was memorable, like had an impact on your life. So can you tell us about a person in your life?
Yeah, there are many, but the one I'll tell you about is Sister Anna Runge, who taught me grade 12 English, and she had very high standards. And there was this one essay, Shakespearean essay, that she gave us, and I spent every weekend for about 6 weeks at the Metro Toronto Library researching and writing everything out on cue cards and putting it all together. And so, but she failed me on the essay because she thought I had plagiarized. And then I produced all of my notes, and she realized that I had met her standards, and she revised her mark to an A+. But you know, she was somebody with high standards, and it took work to achieve them, and it was worth it.
Right. So did she have an impact, or other teachers have an impact on your choice to go into education?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest impact there was my father, who was an elementary school principal. And so I saw, I just saw the life that he led, and always doing things with students. And also, as a family, we ran a family camp, a summer camp. And so I thought, how do I do both of these? And I just looked at him, like he did both of those. So that made sense to go into education, because I love children, and that was a way to do both. And I was in camping for a long time.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. So as we head into a pandemic school year, lots of challenges, so many unknowns, what are some strengths that you are taking with you into the school year?
So one of the things that I do on a daily basis, and I've been doing this for 3 years with a girlfriend of mine, every day we text each other 3 things that we're grateful for. And, you know, it may have been the crappiest day. Like sometimes it's just things like, not just, I shouldn't say that, but sometimes it's like, I'm grateful for a roof over my head, and I've got a vehicle, and I've got a job, you know, like you get down to basics like that. And then other times, and we always say a minimum of 3, but sometimes it's more, it's often more. So just keeping that lens, that focus is really super important. And also when things get really difficult, we have this thing where we talk about it's back to basics. You know, if you've suffered a tragedy, or things are just really, really hard, it's always good sleep, good food, and good exercise. And that's the basis, that's where you start from. And then you start building up again.
Right.
So those are a few things that help ground me, and help
Right.
me not get knocked over.
Right.
Yeah.
So your friend is a great resource for you when you need a bit of a pick-me-up, by focusing on gratitude and then getting back to the basics. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I highly recommend that people do this. And it started with a discussion that we had 3 years ago around, she said, do you keep a gratitude journal? And I said, I have, but I just can't seem to maintain it. And so, and we were only together for a short period of time, and then we were both going to different places. And she said, okay, how about this? If I text you 3 things every day, will you text me back? And I said, absolutely. And the thing is that we don't always have a long conversation. In fact, we don't usually have a long conversation about it, but just to have that little thumbs up from somebody, or just a line, or just an affirmation that, you know, and someone's following you on your journey, is very helpful. I really, and I recommend that it's not your spouse, that it's somebody outside, right?
Right. Yeah, that sounds great.
Hmm.
So I know on top of you being a resource for your friend and she being a resource for you, you are also have several other resources that you have created. And I noticed when I started following you on Twitter because somebody posted your pivot plan and I went through it and I just thought it was exceptional and that more people should see it. And then also you also have another initiative called One in Every Five. So I would love if you would give us a little um, outline of each one of those things, those resources.
Sure. Okay. So the pivot plan was born out of frustration. I was waiting and waiting. This was all formulating in my head in April and May, but I thought, okay, other people are going to come up with this. The government has got to see this. Um, and then the Toronto District School Board came out with, they said core French teachers, and I'm going to guess that it was also prep teachers, to utilize them as classroom teachers. And when you do that, when you're pulling prep, then you have to give your teachers prep somewhere. And they said at the end of the day, and that idea was shot down. And at the time I was trying to get a hold of them. And at this time of COVID, it's really hard to have a conversation with people on the phone. So anyway, I sent them a tweet and I said, excellent, go for it, but don't stop there. So in the pivot plan, I started with the whole reducing classroom sizes, and then a whole bunch of other ideas came in too to just make it all safe. But basically, the essence of it is that we would utilize all of the people that we have on the ground instead of trying to hire thousands of teachers, which where would we come up with them anyway, even if we had the money? Um, so all of our consultants, all of our teachers who are seconded to the ministry, and our prep teachers, specialist teachers, core French teachers, give everybody a homeroom classroom, prep at the end of the day, or one day, say it was Wednesday, we could also do deep cleaning on that day, is a day to give teachers prep and not have students at school. So that was that. And then I just sort of looked at everything as I was analyzing it. Basically, it came really clear to me that the government's plan right now is very economy centric. So back to school is to help the economy move. And I'm not against that. I think we all need that. However, it's kind of like the APGAR score of a baby. When the baby first is born, they have an APGAR score given, and hopefully it's a good one, but they often dip a little bit before they regain their strength. And back to school is going to be like a dip in the APGAR score. We're doing pretty well with our numbers in our COVID numbers in Ontario, but it is definitely going to dip. So why not put all hands on deck to help that succeed, rather than set us up for failure and send us into a lockdown. I really hope that doesn't happen. But so then the other components to help that not happen would be no extracurricular activities generated by the school or external to the school. We need to have these children have two bubbles, home and school. And then some kids will have a third bubble, which is the busing. And it's inevitable. So if we could just keep it to that for a while and make sure we get through that difficult period and make sure everybody's safe, and then we can start pulling these other things in. That's basically the pivot plan. And it's also fairly economically viable way to go.
Right, right. So I would love at the end of the podcast on the final screen, I will put a link to that pivot plan so people can check it out. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so now as we look forward into the future of education, I'd love to hear more about One in Every Five.
Okay, that was also born out of frustration. I was I was a union steward at my school, and I just when the idea first gelled in my head, but that was probably at least 15 years ago, and it was only about 4.5 years ago that I actually thought, gosh, maybe this could be a reality. So why not try, right? It won't happen within my career. However, In Finland, it took them 30 years to revitalize their education system, and they've done such a good job. So I figure you need to start somewhere. So basically, 1 every 5, the concept is that everybody who makes decisions that affect the child in the classroom would teach 1 year every 5 years. So that's Minister of Education, Deputy Minister, Directors of Education, Superintendents, consultants, anybody seconded to the ministry, anybody in our federations, principals, vice principals, specialist teachers, like everybody would have a homeroom class every 5 years so that they can remember what it's all about. And I imagine that this ivory tower that we have right now would become a level playing field and a circle that conversations would change dramatically, and always like the way of, sorry, the word is escaping me. It'll come to me. But when administrators are making decisions about what should happen in the classroom, they always have in the back of their mind 2 things. 1, I'm going to have to live with this when I go back into the classroom. And 2, it needs to be doable for that reason. And then when they come out of the classroom, they have such a wealth of knowledge to share. And just imagine, if your superintendent was across the hall from you, it would be very humbling for them, and it would be very empowering for you as a teacher to be, because they would be starting from scratch pretty much, and they'd be reliant on everybody around them. I just think it would be also one way of raising respect for teachers hugely. So that's kind of the concept. And when I'm retired, I will really continue to push for it.
Right. And that 1 year in the classroom, they would also again have to be collaborators, because teachers very often collaborate. They share information about students, how to reach this one student, how to collaborate and cross teach, right? It would be an amazing for someone who hasn't been in a classroom for years to be reminded of the power of that on the life of a student, as well as on the life of teachers. So
exactly. Yeah, and some administrators, so there hasn't been one teacher that I've talked to about this that hasn't said, oh my goodness, that's brilliant. People who are invested in the administration side, however, just sort of look at me like I am really threatening them with this concept. And very few really embrace it. And I've had people say to me, well, okay, I can see maybe, a few months, maybe 3 months. And I thought, anybody can limp their way from September till Christmas kind of thing. But you need to have the responsibility that you give your teachers from September to June. You need to see each student through. You need to push them to get the gains that you want. And you need to test the things that you have put in place. And are they working? And exactly what you're saying there, that collaborative piece is huge, huge. I think it would be so amazing in terms of relationship building.
Right. Yeah. The culture of the school would be so different if the decisions being made were collaborative.
Right. And then it goes the other way too, because now we have experts in our school, and the things that we can learn from them,
right.
As teachers on the ground, the things that we can learn about the perspective of a superintendent or a consultant or a principal or a director, these are all important perspectives for everybody to have. It just strengthens the whole system.
The system, and like you said, the profession, the respect would be there again for the profession that seems to have been lost.
Yes. Yes. And who wins? The students win.
Yeah.
Big time. And it's my impression that right now, the classroom is not a revered place to be. It should be the most precious place to be, and that people should be trying so hard to get there. And one administrator told me point blank, I worked too hard to get out of the classroom to go back. And others, you can read between the lines in what they say. And it's just, that's wrong. That's wrong. And if we were to bring something like this in, I mean, it would take a lot to do it, but that's not to say that it couldn't happen. If we were to bring something like this in, I can see some people leaving the profession, and those people who leave are the right people to leave,
Right.
because we don't need people who aren't all about the kids.
Passionate about being in the classroom with the students, right? Yeah. Well, Linda, this has been so enlightening. I plan on continuing to follow you on social media, even after you retire, whenever that is, because I would love to see what happens with this project. It's quite exciting. So thank you so much for joining me today, and all the best as you go into this school year.
Perfect. Thanks, Danette.
Okay.
You're doing great work.
Take care. Be well.
Okay. Yeah.